Okay. I'll make the videos going over all the draft archetypes for the Universes Beyond Yu-Gi-Oh set with all the cards. But if I'm going to do this for all of you, I'm going to get content out of it. So we're going to break this down by archetype. And y'all voted, so we will be starting with the blue-black Wizards deck, otherwise known as the Dark Magician archetype or Spellcasters archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Before we start, though, I'm going to be giving you a primer on how to draft this deck and what it can do. So what is it capable of? Let's start with its namesake card, Dark Magician. Wait, hold on. Wasn't this in the previous video? What happened to it? Well, this is a great time to talk about how this set is changing over time. The Universe Beyond Yu-Gi-Oh! Set is constantly being played and changed by the community in our Discord, which you should totally join if you want to be a part of this process. People play the cube, make suggestions, and we discuss these changes together. Some of these things end up changing the cards in the file from what you saw earlier in our last video. So if you want to see all the changes we've ever made, you can see our changelog in the Google Drive folder that's linked in the description. If you want to make your own suggestions, you can also use the Google form that's also linked in the description to make a suggestion. And heck, while you're at it, why don't you just subscribe to our channel, right? Maybe even like the video, and as so many of you did in the last video, you could even leave a comment telling us how you would have designed these cards. All of this helps us beat that algorithm god, our greatest foe. Anyway, join us in the fight to overcome it, one video at a time. What were we talking about? Oh, back to Dark Magician, right. So, as we established in the last video, Dark Magician looks like this in Yu-Gi-Oh! And now it looks like this in Magic. It costs 5 blue-black for a 6/5 human wizard with Emerge for 5 and a blue-black hybrid. All of that is the same from the original video. So what has changed is his main ability, which now reads, when this creature enters, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell will be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. And this is based on many of you in the comments and in the Discord mentioning that Dark Magician's ability should reflect some of the spells that he's able to cast in the anime or some of the spell cards that are associated with him. The issue was, many of those spells and cards were already in my set, like Thousand Knives and Dark Magic Attack. So I came up with a way that he could still be quote-unquote casting his spells, just without stapling those text boxes onto his text box. So if you have one of those spells in your graveyard, well, this Dark Magician can recast them, giving him the similar feeling and vibes that he had originally, even though his Yu-Gi-Oh! Card had no text. This exemplifies what we're going to be seeing in the blue-black Wizards archetype. Wizards, instants, and sorceries all centered around the graveyard. This video is going to tell you all the cards to look out for when drafting this deck in the Universes Beyond Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft Cube, which cards can support that deck build, and which cards are must-haves when drafting this archetype. I'll also try and go over every single card that I would associate with the blue-black Wizards archetype or the Dark Magician archetype. And for any of you who are interested in this set for commander purposes, these are great cards to add to your Wizards-based commander decks. Oh, and by the way, many of you have asked for me to make Dark Magician a legendary, and I do not plan to do this, because legends serve a specific role in the design of this set. But you have my express permission as the lead designer of this set to use Dark Magician as your commander for your Yu-Gi-Oh! Commander decks. So before we dive in, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Mythatom.com. Mythatom is an online store focused on products designed around the media we love. From game accessories to jewelry and more, Mythatom uses creativity and understanding to recreate many of the most iconic elements of our favorite nerdy stuff. They sent me some really cool items that you should be able to see on screen right now. I got a really cool MTG Commander deck box with this amazing stained glass look on the green deck box. It's got a nice case and pocket for your commander to show off as well. Yes, my commander's Mathis the Friend Seeker. No, I will not answer any questions about the deck. Mythatom sells other cool deck boxes too, and sleeves and binders and playmats and tokens, I mean, you name it. All your classic gaming items and accessories. But what's even cooler than that is the other item they sent me. This metal Colossus Hammer keychain. This thing is gorgeous and looks just like the one from the card art. I'm going to put that on screen right here. It's very sturdy and weighty, and it's just a really well-made piece. They have a ton of others like this too, whether they're keychains, rings, or necklaces. Mythatom has some of the coolest metalwork nerd relics I've ever seen in a shop like this. They also sent me some glamour shots of the Colossus Hammer that we can all marvel at right now. Ooh. Ah. So anyway, if you want to get something neat from this store, they gave me a discount code that you can use at checkout. It's not good. All one word, at checkout, to get an extra 10% off your purchase. That's It's Not Good at checkout. Thanks Mythatom for sponsoring this video. Now back to it. Alright, so as we go through these cards, I will be showing the Yu-Gi-Oh version to the side so you can see where the inspiration comes from, but in this video, I'm going to be mostly focused on their Magic iterations and how they fit into the cube environment, so I won't be reading out all the abilities of their Yu-Gi-Oh counterparts. Let's start with some key cards. The place to begin with any draft format is the cards that will draw you into a specific deck in the first place. When drafting in Magic the Gathering in general, there are always key cards that will influence which colors you focus on and which archetypes you attempt to build. These are things like bombs and build-arounds. Bombs are cards that when you play them, they impact the board heavily right away, and build-arounds are cards that when you have the right other cards in your deck, they're going to pop off super big, but they're not very good on their own. Cards are required to shape your deck around them and become the linchpin of whatever your strategy is. Your win conditions. In the blue-black Wizards deck, whichever boss monsters or build-around cards you end up with will determine the pace and pick rate for every other card in your deck, so you'll want to keep these cards in mind if you find yourself leaning towards a blue-black deck early on. Just one of them could tip your deck over the edge if you prepare correctly. So let's start with some typical finishers that you might find yourself using in this deck, such as Sorcerer of Dark Magic, which is 6 black for an 8/7 human wizard that says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, behold any number of other wizards. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each wizard you behold this way. And as a quick reminder, Behold is a mechanic from Tarkir Dragonstorm that allows you to reveal a card of the named type from your hand or choose a permanent you control of that type in play. So for this card, we can make it cost 2 less for each wizard we reveal from our hand and each one we control in play. Next, it has the ability that allows you to pay black and 2 life and discard a card to essentially Thoughtseize your opponent. This says, target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, that player discards that card. Activate only as a sorcery. Once you know the way is clear, this is a great card to slam into play for cheap by beholding a bunch of other wizards. And once in play, you can make sure your opponent's hand is empty of interaction, allowing this beefy attacker to remain in play and close the game out for you. Now, if you are worried about your opponent stopping your attacks with pesky blockers, we have a couple of other options that can put a ton of pressure on the opponent without even attacking. Dark Eradicator Warlock and Musician King. See, Dark Eradicator Warlock has changed since the first video. He now reads 5 and 2 blue-black hybrids for a 6/5 human wizard that has Emerge from Wizard for 4 and a blue-black hybrid. His ability now says, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, target opponent loses 2 life. Compared to his original iteration, at first, he seems like a pretty over-costed gutter snipe instead of what he was originally, but then you notice it says, whenever a player, not whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. So while this guy can help you kill your opponent with spell slinging, it actually also punishes your opponent for doing the same thing themselves. Effects like this will put a target on this creature as it closes out options for your opponent that they have over time. I would expect your opponent to use removal on this creature as soon as they can, so it might be smart to wait to cast Dark Eradicator Warlock until you can hold up a counterspell like Tools of the Bandit or Magic Jammer. Now, Musician King on the other hand is typically going to be one of the last cards you play in a game with your Wizards deck. Musician King is 4 blue-black for a 4/4 human wizard with fusion for 3 and a blue-black hybrid, and 2 wizards as its fusion material. It also says when Musician King enters, each opponent loses 1 life for each instant, sorcery, and wizard card in your graveyard. Unlike Dark Eradicator Warlock, Musician King is a true finisher. Wait until the last moment to play it to get the most out of its ability. This shouldn't be too hard, as it has fusion, allowing you to leave it in the side deck until the perfect moment to cast it. Additionally, since its fusion cost adds 2 wizards to your graveyard, it'll always be dealing +2 damage from those. This card can end up dealing a lot of damage all at once to your opponent. Don't be surprised if it regularly deals between 6 and 10 damage. If that enters effect doesn't kill them, it won't take much more after this to close out the game. Your goal should be to control the game with instants and sorcery, stopping their combos and aggression. Every piece of interaction you use adds to the power of Musician King. This is the kind of card that will give you a clear endgame to work towards. Now, the next threat I want to talk about is Magician of Black Chaos. It is a ritual monster that can be put into play from your deck with its ritual summon spell. The ritual spell is formatted like most of the other ones in this set. Black Magic Ritual is 1 blue-black for a ritual sorcery with ritual 6 for blue-black hybrid mana. This means that you can cast this spell for 1 mana if you discard or sacrifice creatures with total mana value of 6. This spell reads, search your library for a blue-black creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Then you may put a card named Black Magician of Chaos from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So to be clear, you can search up any blue or black creature as a tutor if you need to. Say you're looking for a Dark Eradicator Warlock or a certain god we're going to be talking about in a bit. Well, this can do that, but obviously it's a bit more powerful if it is putting Magician of Black Chaos into play. So let's look at that card. Magician of Black Chaos is 3 blue-black for a 3/4 human wizard, and it reads, when this creature enters, if it wasn't cast, you may cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard card from your hand with mana value 3 or less without paying its mana cost. It also has an ability that says, whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and draw a card. This ability triggers only once per turn. Important to point out that this card's first ability will trigger from more than just being summoned by a ritual summon. It will trigger if you reanimate it from the graveyard, and it will trigger if you even blink it. And it can trigger if it is put into play with something like Magician Navigation. So be on the lookout for other ways you can make that first ability happen. However, even without that first ability, this card can get out of control very fast. At first blush, you may even think that this card is weak. You get a +1/+1 counter and a card, but only once per turn. Well, for starters, once per turn like this also includes other players' turns, so be sure to keep up instants and counter spells, but also the combination of increasing this card's strength and giving card advantage makes something like this the perfect win condition for any Wizards deck. It turns your efficient interaction into 2-for-1s, allowing you to not only stop your opponent's strategy with a well-timed Abyss Strum, but also draw another card and possibly another piece of interaction to kind of keep this chain going, all while beefing up this threat. The blue-black Wizards deck is not typically the one doing broken combos, it's more the one disrupting opposing combos, so lean into that when choosing your threats. This isn't to say that the blue-black Wizards deck never cheats cards. With cards like Magician Navigation and Dark Magic Curtain, it certainly has its moments, as we mentioned in the previous video. Magician Navigation is a card about flexibility. It allows you to leave up a negate effect and eventually plop 2 wizards from your hand into play on your opponent's turn. This is useful because a lot of the time the Wizards deck will be holding back its threats, waiting for the right moment to put them into play. A lot of your Wizards cards will want you to have them in your graveyard or your hand while you answer opposing threats. Now, something to be aware of with this card. It does cost 7 mana, and that's not cheap. So if you pick this card, you need to have a good game plan and some good targets that you will want to have in hand when the time is right. This card will be used for its negate ability probably like 90% of the time. Keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to use the negate ability. As for the Dark Magic Curtain, though, this one's a little bit more tricky. Dark Magic Curtain is 3 blue-black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay half your life rounded down. It then says, search your library for a wizard card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle and end the turn. Absolutely can be an incredibly strong card, but unlike the other options, it really needs you to be playing some specific wizards before it gets its full potential. You see, that last line of text, end the turn, that means that any abilities that would trigger upon your wizard entering don't resolve. The turn ends immediately, so no Magician of Black Chaos, no Dark Magician, no Musician King for this card. Instead, if you pick this card, try looking for wizards without enters effects. Ones with power that isn't related to something like that. Maybe Sorcerer of Dark Magic, or, and these are the big ones really, Dark Sage and Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. These are the real big hitters. Oh, and if you get Dark Magic Curtain, you're going to want to pick Dragoon as soon as you can. You may not get Dragoon's cast trigger when you use it this way, but the card's so powerful that it's 100% the best card you could get with Dark Magic Curtain. That being said, Dark Sage can also do some great work with this. Dark Sage costs 4 blue, black for a 6/8 human wizard. He has an ability that allows him to cast for free from outside the game if you've just used a Time Wizard ability, but that's just for fun. That's really just a flavorful ability. Let's focus on his second ability for our purposes, which says, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, search your library for an instant or sorcery card and cast it without paying its mana cost, then shuffle. This is what makes this card truly strong, and at 8 mana, he better be. Although, like we mentioned, if we have Dark Magic Curtain, we can cast him just for 5 from our library. And because his ability happens on each opponent's upkeep, Dark Magic Curtain doesn't stop us from being able to get his ability. Another quick disclaimer for both Dark Sage and Dragoon. If you want to play them with either Dark Magic Curtain or Magician Navigation, you're gonna have to put them into your main deck, and will not be able to play them from your side deck for their alternate costs. Next up to bat is the Spooky Illusion monster of your Sleep Paralysis, Thousand Eyes Restrict. This costs 2 blue 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 for a 0/4 legendary illusion wizard with fusion for blue 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 and a wizard and a blue creature as its materials. It has 3 abilities. First, when Thousand Eyes Restrict enters, exile target creature you don't control until this leaves the battlefield. Then it has, at the beginning of each combat, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. And lastly, whenever a creature attacks, if it is tapped, put a stun counter on it. There's a whole lot going on in this card. It's a huge menace that slows down combat and threatens to use your best creature against you every turn. Remember, you do not need to put this card into your side deck. If you're okay with casting it for its full mana cost or cheating into play, then you can ignore its fusion cost. But if you are able to meet its fusion requirements, then this is a house when it gets fusion summoned. It removes an opposing creature, and if that creature has good enters effects, you will get that effect at the beginning of each combat. Also, its last ability keeps creatures who attack stunned for a turn, but because his tokens die at the end of the turn, his stuff never is affected negatively. Additionally, you can sacrifice the tokens he makes for other fusion cards or emerge cards. They keep the mana value of the creature that they are copying. This guy is brutal as long as you can actually cast him. Do not underestimate 4 blue pips. Okay, enough traditional means of winning the game. Now let's talk about the outlier for the blue-black wizard archetype. The card that will make you play wizards completely differently. Exodia, of all things. In Yu-Gi-Oh, the Exodia pieces are all spellcasters, so I decided to make them all wizards in this draft set. And when you draft the head of Exodia, you get to add all the other pieces into your draft pool. This was a pretty early rules change for us, since requiring you to draft all 5 pieces was just too much of a pipe dream. Now, since they are wizards, they will help us with all of our synergies, of course, but what having Exodia in our draft pool means is we can completely alter how our deck is meant to run. With many other variations of the Blue-Black Wizards deck, we'll be looking to control the game until we can close it out with a powerful finisher. The Blue-Black Wizards deck is typically a pretty disruptive deck. But if you find yourself with Exodia, you can shape your entire strategy around getting the 5 pieces in the right place at the right time. Luckily, the Exodia pieces in Magic have the ability to return themselves to your hand from the graveyard, an ability which makes them super powerful with a card like Painful Choice. Choose all 5 pieces with Painful Choice sounds great. Of course, this combo, while simple, will take a lot of mana over the course of many turns, so you will want to start with plenty of interactive cards to stay alive in the meantime. Additionally, once you have Exodia, cards like Versago and Humanoid Slime become much higher picks. Not only are they wizards, but they also technically count as one of the limbs of Exodia, since they count as having every card name. In fact, you can even pick a card like Beast King of the Swamps, even though you may not have green mana in your deck, since it has the same text, making it so much easier to win with Exodia. All you need to make this work is enough removal spells like Acid Trap Hole or Call of the Grave, enough dig or draw like Big Eye or Magician's Rod, and your deck will make it across the finish line smoothly. So now let's talk about some supporting actors for this decked archetype. Of course, no draft deck can run with only win conditions. Every deck needs supporting cards, and in the Wizards archetype, that comes in 2 forms. 1, cards that help pay you off for playing wizards, and 2, generically good interaction pieces. Let's start with the Wizard archetype support cards. These cards will pay you off for having wizards with card advantage and mana advantage in each card. So having a card that can ensure you have a wizard more often is also pretty important. Every 2-color archetype in this set has a 2-mana mana rock. For wizards, it's Dark Energy. 2 mana for an artifact equipment that reads tap, pay 1 life, add blue or black. Activate only if this artifact is not attached to a creature. It also says, equip creature gets +1/+1 and has prowess and ward 1, and is a wizard in addition to its other types. Since it's an equipment, it also has equip for 3 blue-black. All of the mana rocks in the set work like this. They're 2 mana, they add 1 of 2 colors, and they are also equipments that give abilities and relevant creature types. These are great for mana fixing as well as ramp, letting you cast things earlier. There's also Dark Magical Circle, which is 1 and a black for an enchantment that says when this enchantment enters, surveil 3, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a wizard card, put it into your hand. It also has, whenever you cast a wizard spell, if a creature was sacrificed as a part of its cost, you may exile target creature an opponent controls. The first part can fill your graveyard and find a wizard, while the second part pays you off for fusion summoning or emerge casting with your wizards. Then we have a card called Dedication Through Light and Darkness, which costs black for an instant, and it has an additional cost that says, as additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature or pay 5 life. Now its ability says draw 2 cards, but if the sacrificed creature was a wizard, draw an additional card. Then, if the sacrificed creature was named Dark Magician, search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle. This is like a super powered Village Rites, and remember, this is a super powerful cube. Dedication is a very flexible card. If you are not under pressure, you can just pay 1 mana and 5 life to draw 2 cards. Trigger your abilities for cards like Magician of Black Chaos or Dark Eradicator Warlock. Otherwise, if you really need the extra card advantage, sacrificing a wizard will net you another card, so 3 cards, right? The text about sacrificing Dark Magician is cheeky, but what you may not have realized on first blush is that this card actually works with the Changeling cards as well. If you sacrifice Versago, not only is he actually a wizard, so you get 3 cards, but his name is technically Dark Magician, so you can also tutor up another wizard. Always be on the lookout for sick ways you can abuse this card. Next up is Magician's Souls. It's another great source of card advantage with a ton of flexibility built in. It's 4 and a black for a 3/3 spirit wizard, and it has, as an additional cost to cast the spell, you may discard up to 2 instant and or sorcery cards. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each discarded this way. Now its main ability is, when this creature enters, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, but it also has the ability to wizard cycle for 1 and a black. And if you don't know what wizard cycling is, it means you can pay that mana, discard the card, then search your library for a wizard and put it into your hand. Now, this is a lot. It's got a lot going on. You can cast it for 5 mana to get 2 cards in a 3/3, which is fine, but you can also get this on the board quicker by discarding some instant and sorcery cards. Of course, the more you discard, the less the card advantage ability is actually giving you advantage, but depending on where you are in the game, you might prefer being able to pitch your instant and sorcery cards to get this into play faster. Additionally, if you are one of the decks that's looking for specific wizards, like, the pieces of Exodia, you can use its wizard cycling ability to search for whatever wizard you need. Next up, we've got Dark Magician Girl, which is a good threat to put on board. It's slightly different from the one in the last video. It costs 3 and 2 blue-black hybrids for a 3/3 human wizard with Emerge for 3 and a blue-black hybrid. It reads, this creature gets +1/+1 for each instant, sorcery, and wizard card in your graveyard. Now, unlike the win conditions I mentioned before, this is actually a mid-game style card, meant to punish opponents who don't play enough interaction, and draw out early removal from those who do. She certainly can win games if she gets big enough, but she isn't the main game ender for most wizard decks. She's mostly just a lightning rod or a punishing stick. Next card I want to talk about is Dark Magician of Chaos, which is 6 and 2 blue-black hybrids for a 6/6 human wizard with Emerge for 6 and a blue-black hybrid. It also says when this creature enters, return target instant, sorcery, or wizard card from your graveyard to your hand. I actually made a short about this not too long ago. It's not the strongest card in your deck, but it definitely helps smooth out some of your later turns. It has a large body and replaces itself with a card from your graveyard. It can also return a creature that you used for its Emerge cost if it was a wizard. For example, if you play Aquamador on turn 3, then on turn 4 you can sacrifice it to play this card and immediately get your Aquamador back. Speaking of Aquamador, he is 2 and a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk wizard that reads, when this creature enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put 2 stun counters on it. You can see how this would be pretty good with a card like Dark Magician of Chaos. Tap something your opponent controls down for 2 turns, sack this relatively small creature to play a big ol' 6/6 and get it back immediately to lock down another creature on the following turn. Aquamador fits a card category that your wizard deck is really gonna need. The kind of card that you play early on that helps fill in the gaps between your bigger plays. A card like Aquamador makes your Dark Magicians and Dark Eradicator Warlocks a lot easier to play as well, and they get most of their value right whenever you play them, so sacrificing them really doesn't hurt. I also want to mention that Aquamador is slightly different than most versions of this card you see in Magic. Most of the cards like Aquamador only put 1 stun counter, and all it takes is you playing this card 1 time to realize how big of a difference the extra stun counter is going to make. Next up, we have Ancient Brain, and this can serve a similar role as Aquamador. It's blue-blue for a 2/2 horror wizard with flying, and it says when this creature enters, draw a card. Super simple. So, if you sacrifice this card to do a fusion summon or an emerge, you've already got your money's worth with the draw card. Always be on the lookout for cards like this to fill out your curve. It's a wizard to help you with your cards that pay you off for having wizards, and it's cheap, so you can play it in the early game. It also provides you with a lot of value up front, so that sacrificing it doesn't really feel too bad. Another card in this vein is actually Magician of Faith. See, she is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 elf wizard with defense position for 1 and a blue. She also has vigilance, and when this creature enters or is turned face up, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So, defense position actually has changed since the original video, and this is by popular demand. Many of you in the comments mentioned that defense position monsters can't attack, and they flip when they are attacked in Yu-Gi-Oh! So you can see how it has changed to represent that. You can set it for 1 mana and get a 2/2, but that 2/2 has Defender, meaning it can't attack while it's face down. You may flip it at any time for its mana cost, but if it's blocking, you get a much more reduced cost for flipping it. Anyway, for Magician of Faith, its front side is great for sacrificing to emerge cost, since you will have gotten an instant or sorcery from your graveyard back, but don't make the mistake of sacrificing it in defense mode. Its mana value when it's defense mode is actually treated as 0, so you really won't get any mana reduction if you do that. Nevertheless, this is a great flexible card for your Wizards deck. Being able to play it on turn 1 as a nice blocker goes a long way for smoothing out the rest of your game. Similarly, having wizards that get their value when they die can also be just as good as ones that give you the value up front. Take Witch of the Black Forest for example. She costs 2 and a black for a 2/3 elf wizard that reads, when this creature dies, search your library for a creature card with toughness 3 or less, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Like many of the smaller wizards, their whole purpose is to be sacrificed in order to bring out bigger wizards. Every wizard's deck is going to need a couple of these, so pick them highly once you're in the wizard's deck. This one in particular is great because it can actually get you any piece of the Exodia puzzle in your deck. The next card I want to shout out is a build-around wizard that I think you should wait to pick until you're absolutely sure you're in the wizard's deck. That card is Skilled Dark Magician. It's 2 blue for a 3/3 human wizard that says whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It also has the ability that when this creature dies, if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, search your hand, library, and graveyard for a wizard card with mana value 7 or less, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. This is definitely a powerhouse of a card if you can get it going, but it really needs you to be kinda all in. You need enough instants, sorceries, and wizards to pump it at least 3 times before it dies, otherwise this card is underwhelming. You also need a good target to grab for its ability when it does die. This could be something like Dark Eradicator Warlock or Dark Magician. As long as you have a Dark Magician or Dark Eradicator Warlock type card, you will be fine. Also, Magician of Black Chaos, if you get that with this card, it gets its first trigger. Honestly, any wizard you get with this trigger is probably going to be fine, but it might be worth trying to find the ones that have bigger impact. As for the filler class wizard cards, there are plenty of good cards that will fill in the gaps of your decks, but these two are wizards and thus they're going to make the cut in your deck a little bit more often than any other C tier cards. Masked Sorcerer is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard that says this creature can't be blocked as long as you cast a non-creature spell this turn, and whenever you attack, draw a card, then discard a card. You might think this card seems extremely weak for a set like this. You might say, I thought this was supposed to be a vintage cube power level. What's this? Well, first of all, not every card in the set will be off the wall broken and impactful. And second of all, this card is better than it looks. If you're trying to compare it to cards that have existed in the past, you might want to look again. You see, its first ability is pretty easy to turn on, but that isn't the main reason this card will stand out to many longtime MTG drafters. It's the second ability, actually. You see, the way I have chosen to word this is very particular. It says, whenever you attack. This means no matter how many creatures, and no matter whether you even attack with this creature or not, you get the trigger. Also, it triggers on attack, when normally these kinds of cards trigger on dealing combat damage to your opponent. The attacker does not even have to connect for you to get the loot effect. Still, even at this improved rate, this card isn't knocking anyone out. But if your wizard's deck needs a few more early plays, or if you're running reanimation spells in your deck like Call of the Haunted, this can get you bombs into your graveyard early on with the discard portion of the ability. Even lowly filler cards in this set have more going on than you might think. The next C-tier filler style card you should consider more heavily if you're in the wizard's deck is Mystical Lamp. This is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 artifact construct wizard with vigilance, and it can't be blocked. It also has tap, add blue. Spend this mana only to cast instant, sorcery, or wizard spells. Now in a vacuum, all of the abilities separately on a 3-drop are pretty weak. A 2-3 Vigilance for 3 is pretty bad. A 2-3 Unblockable for 3 is also not that good. Even a 2-3 for 3 that taps for 2 mana to cast instants and sorceries is also pretty bad. All of these have been cards in previous Magic the Gathering sets, but here I've combined them all into one card, where all these abilities actually synergize with one another. Vigilance and Unblockable means you can attack every turn with this and still always have a blocker if you want. Vigilance and the mana ability means you don't have to pick between attacking and using it for mana. Also, don't underestimate that mana ability. It may be restrictive to only instant sorceries and wizards, but if you build your wizard deck right, this should actually work on almost every card in your deck. And in that scenario, this card whittles your opponent's life total down while doubling your ramp. Again, this is still what I would consider a filler C-level tier card in the set, but if you're in the right deck, this can absolutely shine. Now, before we move on to the important interaction section of the video, I have 2 more cards that I want to call out that fit into this strategy. The first is Lemuria the Forgotten City, and it's a land that is an island and a swamp. It enters tap, and it has the ability to tap until in a turn, you may treat target creature's mana value as though it were increased by 3. Now there are 2 main reasons for the wizard deck to want this card. Number 1, because wizards are blue and black, so fixing your mana in those colors is always appreciated. But number 2, the special ability of this card allows you to use smaller creatures to emerge out massive ones far cheaper than you otherwise would be able to. If you use this on, say, I don't know, an Ancient Brain, making it have a mana value of 5, you can now pay just 1 mana to emerge out your Dark Magician. So it can be useful in many wizards' deck, not just for mana fixing. The second card I wanted to mention is absolutely a go-to for Wizards decks, but again, I don't think you should be picking this card until you are absolutely sure you are playing the Wizards deck. Magician's Rod is blue for an artifact with 2 abilities. The first one reads 1 in a blue, tap, sacrifice this artifact, search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle. So it's a tutor for any instant or sorcery. That can be great for allowing you some flexibility. Make sure you have a lot of options, otherwise the amount of mana you are paying for this will really not be worth it. Its second ability reads 1 in a blue, sacrifice a wizard, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. This allows you to loop this card. It's pretty expensive mana-wise, and it requires you to sacrifice a wizard to get it back. So this is a long game type card. The return ability can be used at instant speed, so this means that when an opponent goes to use a removal spell on one of your wizards, you can respond by sacrificing that wizard and getting this back, but again, the amount of total mana and resources being spent is quite a lot. It's meant to give you a nice long-term game plan, which the Wizards deck is well built to do, but make sure you have all the cards you need to fuel this kind of thing before committing to it. Okay, now let's finally get to the big ol' interaction cards, and these are really important. So with our meat and potatoes out of the way, you can see that any good blue-black Wizards deck will only really be as good as its interaction spells when you're drafting. So don't slack on these cards just because you saw another cool wizard in your pack. Without efficient and effective removal, counterspells, and even discard spells, the wizard deck will fold to far more explosive combos and aggression. Thankfully, there are a couple of these interaction spells that cater directly to the wizard's deck. Let's start the section off with one of Dark Magician's signature attacks, Thousand Knives. Thousand Knives has been updated a little bit from the version that appeared in the original video, along with many other cards that have been nerfed or buffed from playtesting. Thousand Knives here costs black for a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast a spell, behold a wizard or pay 2. Now remember, behold means we either choose a wizard we control or reveal one from our hand to meet its condition. If we can't do that here, we gotta pay 2 extra mana. What do we get for this cost? Well, target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn, its controller loses 2 life. If we get this for 1 mana, that is a steal. 1 mana to kill a creature and make their opponent lose 2 life is a really good deal. When you have enough wizards in your deck, a card like this becomes a super high pick. If you can guarantee it's only going to cost you 1 mana, it's one of the best removal spells in the set. It can save you from early aggression, and it pairs really nicely with the wizards who can get instant or sorceries back from the graveyard. Of course, if your deck isn't a wizard deck, paying 3 mana for this at sorcery speed is a much bigger ask, particularly in a format that's this fast and this powerful. Next up, we have Dark Magic Attack. This is 1 in a blue for an instant that has the same condition as Thousand Knives, either pay additional 2 or behold a wizard. The effect is, target non-land permanent's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. Now, this being an instant and able to hit any non-land permanent makes it far more flexible than Thousand Knives. This is why it costs 1 more mana, but that additional cost doesn't make it any less powerful, and just like Thousand Knives, once you know you're in a Wizards deck, this should become a high priority. Just don't pick it too early, otherwise you might be stuck with it when you aren't even playing Wizards, and at 4 mana, this card is a lot worse. Speaking of cards that are a lot worse when you don't have enough Wizards in your deck, let's talk about Dark Renewal. This is probably the flashiest of the Wizard deck interaction cards. It's 3 black for an instant trap. Its ability is destroy target creature, then search your library and or graveyard for a wizard card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, you gotta shuffle. And since it's a trap card, it does have an alternate casting mode, which is if a creature entered under an opponent's control this turn and the amount of mana spent to cast it was less than its mana value, you may sacrifice a wizard rather than pay its spell's mana cost. This is a bit of a doozy to understand on the first read, so let me explain. What this essentially means is if your opponent got a creature into play that they didn't spend mana on, or they had like a cost reduction for, then you can use this alternate cost. Think of things like Emerge or Fusion, both of which cost less than the creature's original casting cost. This also lets you use this alternate cost when a creature is reanimated from the graveyard. It should be obvious why this card needs you to play wizards. If you want to use the alternate cost, you need a wizard to sack. If you want to be able to get a wizard from the main ability, you obviously need a wizard in the deck. And 5 is a whole lot of mana. You aren't going to want to play this all the time for its full mana cost if you can't at least get a 2-for-1 out of the main ability. So make sure you have at least 1 wizard in your deck, but ideally you would have enough that you could also sacrifice 1 for the alternate cost. Now where I want to go at this point in the video is I kind of want to talk about some of the generically good cards that this deck can make even better use of. These are instant and sorcery cards that are very powerful and efficient. Cards that any blue or black deck might want, but the Wizards deck can make shine. Cards like the following. Acid Trap Hole. It's 1 and a black for an instant trap card that says, destroy target creature with toughness 5 or less. Its trap condition is, if a face-down creature entered under an opponent's control this turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the spell's mana cost. This allows you to snipe defense position monsters for free before they can flip face up. It's really a great all-around removal spell that is pretty much good for any black deck, but especially nice in a Wizards deck. Then there's Confiscation, which is black for a sorcery that reads, target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, that player discards that card, you lose 2 life. This is just Thoughtseize, and that's why we put the little alias bar on there that says Thoughtseize. It's cheap, it's powerful, it's good disruption that can be recurred and recast with very little setup. Similar to Confiscation though, blue has actually its very own version of Thoughtseize in this set, which might be even stronger. The Forceful Sentry costs blue for a sorcery which reads, target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, that player shuffles that card into their library. The effect of choosing a card to put back into their deck is a blue ability, which you can kind of see on cards like Vendilion Clique, and while it might not be a common thing, I do think it's justifiable to make this card blue rather than black, even though it is super powerful. But hey, that's what we're here to do. We're here to play super powerful cards. Anyway, just like Confiscation, this early game disruption can help you set up later game engines without fear of being comboed out. Oh, and I do want to mention, Forceful Sentry putting the card back into the deck is really good because it can prevent your opponent from reanimating whatever creature you got rid of. Anyway, let's move on to the next card, which is Dark Hole. This is another alias card. It's an alias for Damnation. It costs 2 black for a sorcery that says, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. It's one of the best cards in a control deck, and since Wizards is a control deck in this format, it's perfect for that deck. The Wizards deck doesn't usually have too many creatures in play, and the ones it does put into play often give you value when they enter or die, so you're rarely the one losing out when casting the spell. There's also Delinquent Duo, which is simply a powerful and cheap 2-for-1. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery that says, target opponent discards a card at random, then discards a card of their choice, you lose 2 life. It doesn't get any easier than this to disrupt your opponents. Any black deck would love this card, but especially Wizards. Fissure is another good card for the deck. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery that reads, target player sacrifices a creature they control with the least power or tied with the least power. Which, I guess, is not really the most powerful removal spell in the world, but thankfully to make up for its lack of raw power, Fissure also has flashback for 1 black. Some cards are not as efficient, but are able to generate good long-term value, and that is what Fissure is here to do. This isn't a high pick for the Wizards deck, but if you're in that archetype and finding yourself low on removal, it's not a bad pick. After all, if your opponent's only creature in play is Dragoon, it still technically is their creature with the lowest power, so Fissure it is. Next up, we got Share the Pain, which has a similar purpose to Fissure. It costs black for a sorcery that reads each player sacrifices a creature. This is another alias card. It's an alias for Innocent Blood. And just like Fissure, you won't get to choose which of your opponent's creatures dies, but timing it right can mean that really doesn't matter. Unlike Fissure though, failing to play this early on can lead to it hurting you more than helping you, so make sure that you cast it when you have no creatures in play and your opponent has a good one. That will allow you to make the most of it. Unlike the previous spells, you don't really want to cast this one when you have a card like Magician of Black Chaos in play, as you're going to lose that super powerful threat. This card is here for early game to prevent you from losing to fast aggression. Next is Tribute to the Doom, another alias card. This one is for Bone Shards. It's black for a sorcery that has an additional cost that says you can either discard a card or sacrifice a creature. It makes up for this cost by being targeted cheap removal, which can hit either a creature or planeswalker, although there are no planeswalkers in this set. That text is just from the alias card. This card can work in most Wizards deck, but if you happen to be an Exodia or happen to have reanimation spells, this card's value skyrockets. Turn 1, Tribute to the Doom, kill their defense position creature and discard Dragoon, then turn 2, Monster Reborn it? Not as crazy of a play as you might think, so it's important to know when you might be in the right deck for this card. An extremely similar in template card to Tribute to the Doom is Magic Jammer. This card costs blue for an instant that has an additional cost of discarding a card, and it reads counter target spell. Just like Tribute to the Doom, this card trades value for efficiency, and just like it, this card is better if you can make good use of discarding for your own cards for value. If your deck can't afford to be discarding cards for its counterspells, we also have 7 Tools of the Bandit. This card costs blue for an instant that has the additional cost that reads, as additional cost of spell, pay 3 life or pay 2 mana. Its ability just says counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So not as definitive as Magic Jammer, but less punishing of a cost. The option to pay 2 extra mana rather than 3 life can prevent you from putting pressure on yourself against aggressive decks, but it still gives you the option of a cheap disruption against early game opponents. Of course, why pay mana at all if you don't have to? See, Solemn Judgment out here is an alias card of Force of Will, which is 3 blue for an instant, which has the alternate cost of exiling a blue card from your hand and paying 1 life, and it counters target spell. This card is very similar to the last two by making you pitch a card from your hand to get its ability. And while it might sound like a lot, this kind of card is super good for decks that really need to be able to counter spells against combo decks without needing to have mana up. Unlike Magic Jammer, you don't need to have any mana available to cast this spell. But unlike 7 Tools of the Bandit, this card is pretty expensive if you don't want to pay its alternate cost. Alrighty, well, that's it for the Blue-Black Wizards archetype. Of course, these aren't the only cards you can put in a Blue-Black Wizards deck, and any of the cards really that are blue or black and that you can cast will probably fit in there. In fact, many times you will be splashing a third color and might put a card like Flame Manipulator or Fighting Flame Swordsman alongside the cheap, efficient red removal instead of the black removal. But if I spent this video talking about all 3 color permutations this deck can have, I would probably be here forever. So for now, we can leave it at just the blue and black cards. But do not worry, if you're someone who's curious about where a card like Flame Swordsman fits into all of this, I will be making videos about the alternative archetypes like Mono Red or Mono Black that can be splashed into any of the other 2 color decks. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, demolish, and demoralize the forces of the enemy algorithm. We are a team, a community. YouTube's robot overlords cannot defeat us. Bye.